What's the worst scandal to happen at your school? The principal slept with a student and his nude sexts were leaked. People's willingness to voluntarily collect electronic receipts that incriminate them astounds me. There was a kid whose girlfriend brought a knife into school and planned to kill herself in the bathroom. He knew her locker combination, so he took the knife and hid it in his so she wouldn't do it and wouldn't get busted. Someone snitched on him and he got expelled for having a knife on campus. Whole town was pissed. A male gym teacher did and some girls volleyball players. Principal got fired for threatening teachers if they didn't produce enough A's and driving a grade inflation scandal. That and the usual drugs and such. Some students broke into a local elderly reverend's home to rob him, thinking he was away. He sadly wasn't, and they proceeded to bludgeon him and his wife to death with baseball bats and beer bottles. They were caught pretty quickly, and although their names legally couldn't be published because they were minors, everyone including the local media knew who committed the crime. Media caused a circus at our school for weeks, harassing any student for comment. Many did because they thought it was cool. Although these three kids, 13, 14, 15, were known to cause trouble, no one ever suspected they would be capable of a double homicide. We had a computer teacher football assistant coach who was just blasted all day, had so many DUIs he had to get rides to work, but was the cousin of the superintendent so he kept his job. Let's just say that when he crashed a student's car in the parking lot because he convinced them to let him borrow it, that was the beginning of the end of it. It was a small town. The scandal is that the super tried to cover it up by trying to convince the kid to take the heat for it. To no one's surprise, the kid was not convinced. They let him stay on as super for another 2 years. A kid in my senior year short story class, who sat directly behind me, was charged with the stabbing, beheading and burning of one of his friend's drug dealer. I remember the day like it was yesterday, sitting in my short story class when my teacher came in tears because she just heard the news. Students didn't find out about it until later. I actually have a friend who testified in his trial because he purchased the murdering materials at the hardware store she worked at. Crazy, man. Did some googling. Is this in Michigan? Sure is. The lunch lady was having sex with students and buying them alcohol. Here's a link to the article if anybody is interested. https www.nadalanews.com News National VT Cafeteria worker arrested sex teen students article 1.28599043. Student brutally murdered his parents. He was a friend and co-captain of the soccer team. His mom was my English teacher. Story. This one is incredibly sad. Would it be okay if I get more information as far as the school so I can read articles on it? It was a long time ago, 1980s. Here is an article on it. The caretaker killed 2 local girls and hid them in the school. He tried using the clay kiln to burn them. He later dumped them a few miles away. What the F, when was this? I'm guessing OP is referring to the Soham murders. It happened in August 2002. Thankfully, the guy who did it is rotting in prison. The 30-ish theater teacher ran off with a recent grad. I was kind of pals with the student during a play the spring before the scandal, and she hosted the cast party where in retrospect, they seemed a little cozy than appropriate. As much as I'm dying for the inside scoop, I can't imagine friending her on social media and asking, so what was up with you and MR? It has to be done if you want to know. I was in 4th or 5th grade and someone sketched in the middle school bathroom not to go on school Friday or I will bang bang. This was then brought to the attention of the county and state police and we didn't have school that day and the police searched everyone's lockers for a firearm. Wow, how old is that? I'm from UK so not familiar with grade system like 7-8 years old, 9 to 11 years old. Kid made a chlorine bomb and threw it in the trash can at lunch. Lockdown. Bomb squad. Every single kid and faculty member out on the field in 95-degree weather for 2+ hours until parents could show up to pick up their kids. Kid in my class sent an email to the White House, threatening to kill Socks, the Clintons' cat. Secret Service showed up a few days later after they tracked down the computer. Did he get any punishment? Lifetime ban from ever working for the government. He was on the military track too, but they ripped up his contract. This kid was taking his GCSEs, important exams in England until you get older and realize they mean F all. Whilst at an exam some kids got onto his phone, went onto his notes and found a 4,000-word document consisting of his sexual fantasies with other girls in his year. Clearly paid attention in English as there was some clever wordplay egg. Comparing his cock to some world-famous landmarks, the screenshots found their way into a lot of group chats. There were about 20-odd screenshots. To put into context how long it was, and it basically acted as a vaginal repellent for the rest of his time at the school. Important exams in England until you get older and realize they mean F all. Perfectly defined. A teacher had an affair with a student. She was arrested and released on bail. Then a few days later she sent an email to other teachers saying it wasn't an affair but that she was actually being read by the student and blackmailed. She even attached screenshots of texts. Later that day, she murdered her husband and committed suicide. Holy fuck, that's a sad and wild story. Merry Christmas everyone. Some highlights. The chorus teacher got caught looking at Lolita porn on his school computer. This kid had nudes of his ex that his friend sent to a bunch of people in school, but he was 18 and she was 14 or 15. So he got expelled and I believe he was charged with distributing child pornography. We had a whole assembly because of it where the cops came and told us they could see everything on our phones. A kid in my grade and another girl, same girl as in the story above, actually had sex in the bathroom. I learned about it from my band teacher. Band teacher spreading rumors FFS. In middle school, 8th grade early 2000s, one of the hot girls sent a couple nude pictures to her BF and it wasn't long until half the school had them. Police ended up becoming involved to make sure any old copies were destroyed. In high school there was a little scandal involving the teachers and a teachers club called the Hot Tub Club. Faculty members that had hot tubs would host a weekly hot tub party with other hot tub owners. Turns out they were all getting wasted and having a swinging party every Wednesday. Somebody's spouse found out about it and there was a huge exodus of hot tub teachers my senior year. One of the students wrote his own fanfic with himself and some of the younger girls. Probably the time a girl gave a guy a BJ in the bathroom. The guy filmed it and sent it to his friend. His friend sent all around the school. Eventually the police had to get involved because the one guy was guilty of distribution of child pornography. A girl in my middle school was telling people she had a hit list of people she was going to kill, got caught with the list, and was sent to hospital for a while. She came back a few years later in high school. I also had a hit list in middle school because I was a dumbus. It was a group of about 30 guys that would come to school and play a kind of tag game. If you were tagged during the day, you were assassinated and the game was over until the next day. We used to play a similar game using camera phones when they first came out. The kill was made by taking a photo without the victim being aware of it. Lots of us acting strangely in town, looking over shoulders and ducking behind parked cars. No list. But we were given a bit of a talking to as the college thought there was some intricate form of bullying going on. Our football defense coordinator molested our ed a large number of young boys over a long period of time and no one did a thing about it. This happened between my sister and brother graduating, so it would have been 1996 or 1997. The HS Ag teacher started dating a student at some point. Everyone knew about it and the parents consented. Our HS was, and is, small enough to still participate in senior trips, and the AG teacher went along as a chaperone when his GF was a senior. They shared a hotel room. When I believe the student was still technically a 17 years old minor. At the time I remember my parents being rather put off by it, but they still hired the guy as a summer farm hand. I don't remember if he was fired or stepped down, but by the time I made it to HS we had a different ag teacher. They got married and had a child. Divorce maybe 5 or 10 years ago. The kid goes to our HS now. I don't know why it wasn't a huge deal at the time, but no one really raised a stink or threatened to call the authorities. Today it feels like a case of grooming by a predatory farm boy. First week of high school, PE class. The first section was swim. Wasn't my class, but the class after. This kid was playing a game with his friends in the water who could hold their breath the longest. He was going up for air and hit head on the pointy part of the gutter, and never made it to the surface. Friends didn't notice, teacher didn't notice. Eventually football players coming back to the locker rooms noticed. He ended up dying. Teacher was fired, although I wouldn't fully blame him as he was attending and teaching kids who didn't know how to swim or weren't strong swimmers. One adult for over 60 kids? That's the school's fault. I understand the teacher not noticing, but the friends who were directly competing with the kid didn't notice. Must have thought he was pretty darn good at breath holding. Yeah, that seems pretty unfair on the guy. Something bound to happen with that many people. During middle school a few kids sold weed and someone that bought some smoked it in the building, which was just stupid. The kid that sold it to him didn't want to get in trouble, so he pulled the fire alarm so people wouldn't find the kid. We all got to go home afterwards. Honestly, that's some pretty quick thinking. Obviously not very responsible. But the kid that pulled the fire alarm had some pretty sharp self-preservation instincts. Plus, if he got crap for pulling a false alarm, he can legitimately say that he saw smoke. History teacher disappeared in the night with the French teacher's wife, and the other French teacher made national news for sexually abusing boys. My high school guidance counselor f'd a science teacher's wife and everyone knew about it. They got a divorce. Both teachers still work at the same school to this day, and students will never ever let it go. The story has been handed down from year to year. Kids are brutal. We must never let our history die, must we? Long story short, the principal got arrested for hiding cameras in the bathroom. This was back in elementary. He was a total fine creep. What the f? Shocked at how many pedo stories there are. Well, honestly, there aren't that many things that qualify as worst scandal. Many interesting things happened. Not so many of them caused sh to fly. Hell, if I hadn't seen it I would never have known a teacher broke up a fight by running outside brandishing a hammer. We had a bomb scare that evacuated the school, and the boat cruise company we like to use for grad finally issued a permanent ban when someone unbolted a toilet tank and threw it overboard. But I wouldn't really count any of it as a big scandal. Give me a board funneling tons money or a pedo and that's going to get you an answer. Anything else is probably minor or getting covered up. A overachieving student in my year went nuts and pooped in a bag in a teacher's classroom. She also thought she could run up trees. Turns out she didn't, end up skipping a few years and going to uni early like she was predicted to do. The balance of genius is on a very thin edge. A girl died in the pool during an event at the school. The swim teacher was blamed and was prosecuted. The girl who died was at my sister's class. Both were 7 at the time. That happened over 10 years ago. But the parents haven't had another child since. She was their only kid. That's horrible. Poor people. A guy in year 10 made a statement that the more compact a group of people are, the higher the death toll would be in a shooting, and we were genuinely talking about shootings and somehow people mistook it that he was gonna do it. It was a joke and everyone was playing along at first. Cut to 11 months later. He was in year 11. The whole school knows. Rumors got out. The truth was beyond fine twisted and changed to something different. Kids were actually scared to come in. Parents were pissed. Teachers were anxious. They had to search the kid. They kicked him out 9 days before he finished for good. Was still allowed to do exams but had to do separately from everyone else. The police were involved and it made the news, but the news article is complete fake and bullsh. He also wasn't allowed to prom. This was around 4-5 years ago. He told me he was doing a lot better now. He went to a better school for 6th form. He says whilst he has moved on with his life, he will never forgive the bastards. Also, we live in England and guns are much harder to get, especially to the average person who knows nothing about how to get guns. That's effing horrible, poor lad. Glad he moved somewhere better. You take the kid you suspect of being an angry, isolated person willing to lash out, and you isolate him further and make his life a living hell. Makes sense. The Harlem Shake was a craze. We had an re-teacher who desperately enjoyed being the popular teacher, so he got in on the craze. Invited 40 pupils from my year to his classroom at lunch and filmed his own Harlem Shake video, which in itself would have been against safeguarding rules. Thing is, he also taught sex ed, so everyone got into his cupboard before the start of the video for props. The video was essentially a group of 14-year-olds throwing dildos and condoms around the room while he, of his own accord, grinded on a life-size cutout of the Pope. He was suspended under investigation for half a year but surprisingly kept his job. He was a lot more professional when he returned, while he, of his own accord, grinded on a life-size cutout of the Pope. When you Sinead O'Connor yourself. When I was in 3rd grade, I believe, one of the principals at my school got arrested for disability fraud or something like that. Then when I was in the 7th grade, one of the teachers got arrested for being a pedophile. Seems like a common theme in this comment section, lol. A video leaked of a girl effing herself with a spatula. We called her Spatula Girl. Funny at the time. Makes me feel bad now. It. A word. My religion teacher was relocated after rumors spread that he sexually harassed a female student and hit a male student. I never found out if those rumors were true, but I mean there had to be something because teachers don't just get relocated in the middle of a school year. He was an A. I wouldn't put it past him. In Germany it's super hard to get fired as a teacher. I think you'd need a prison sentence to actually get fired. That's why he was only relocated. 3 come to mind. Principal of the HS and director of athletics got caught embezzling money from the school to their bank accounts. They got caught after 50k went missing from the school's bank. Bomb threat. Got searched whenever we went in. Metal detectors. Bomb dogs. The works. Couple kids invited an African American into their Twitter group called Golfenas and were saying stuff like repeal the 13th to her. She tracked down the school and made a complaint. Made local news. We had a few. Some standouts. Student hid a pregnancy from her parents. She ended up giving birth at home and killed the baby. Teacher sexually harassed students. Students engaged in sexual acts at the nearby church, where all our masses occurred. And we, the student body, were then banned for having our masses at the church. Whoa, WTF that first one. It was definitely a messed up experience for everyone. The uncomfortable part is she supposedly hid the pregnancy from everyone. However, there's a photo of her in the yearbook with her friends and she is clearly very pregnant. Back in high school, the entire football team was almost expelled because one girl gave blowjobs to every single one of the players in the locker rooms. Supposedly they were all in a circle and the girl was just going around to each person. The kicker? The girl's brother was on the team. And he let it happen. What a lovely brother. I assume he didn't get involved. Every single one of the players. HMMMM. Some dude with a tiny little pecker sent a picture of it, unsolicited, to a girl, and she sent it to all his friends. Wasn't long before like half the school had seen it. Wasn't long. I see what you did there. My former high school got on the news for having a history teacher lie for 4 years about being a decorated war hero. Guy claimed to have not 1, but 2 Purple Hearts, among other things, and never even served a day in the military. But it gets juicier. The truth came out because his ex-wife exposed him, sending evidence he was making it all up to local news stations and the school. Why'd she do it? The history teacher was having an affair with another teacher in my school. We had a lot of weird teachers at my school, but I think this story shows just how much the administration hardly vetted teachers. Like holy we also had a guidance counselor get the boot for being a racist. But that's another story that didn't get as much publicity. When in middle school, the school forced us to give our phones to the vice principal, and they would stay there locked during the day. They got stolen. Around 120 smartphones. This locking up can backfire. One year we got together and all agreed to set an alarm on our phones for the same time, at max volume. After that they just said the phones had to be turned off. Though, nope, should have set them 2-5 minutes apart so they don't go quiet at the same time. That was clever of them lol. What the F are you going to do with 120 phones? That's gonna be a hard sell on the Facebook marketplace. Needed new numbers because his ex-GF blocked his. A girl gave a guy a BJ behind a building. Her braces got stuck on his dick. He pulls back, dick bleeding, punches her in the mouth. She goes and tells the principal. Parents get called in. He yells she cut my dick, while the door was open. Everyone knew then. A teacher was found having sex with a student on a table in the lunchroom. The student was in 8th grade and her parents knew about it. These are just getting more fed up SMH. Here I was thinking the guy hacking a teachers around and receiving exam answers was a big deal. This thread proved otherwise. Sophomore year, a girl in my grade passed on a solid yellow up a hill, hit a family in a car and killed both parents and one of the kids. A week later she's back at school in a brand new pickup truck, and never faced any sort of trial or anything. Her parents were extremely large farmers in the small rural town and had influence in the local court systems, I'm sure. Oh, did I mention she excitedly showed off her new truck when she came back? F you, Taylor. F Taylor. Yeah, F you, Taylor. One of the female gym teachers at my HS got arrested for doing drugs on campus. The entire 11th grade of my school visits a concentration camp each year, and 2 years ago someone brought weed. So 20 students were expelled and 15 suspended. Even the police got involved. Weed isn't legal yet here. How did 35 people get in trouble? How much weed did he bring? Maybe no one would rat on who brought it. Two things, both in middle school. I was at home on a Sunday watching the news with my mom when all of a sudden my 6th grade teacher's mugshot showed up and it said that her and her husband were pulled over and the police found like 6 pounds of high grade weed. Lead to a search warrant for their home and they literally slept on her inflatable mattress. The whole house was a grow up. She did look like a hippie but I don't understand. She was not mellow at all. She was a B. In 8th grade, one of my friend's parents had cancer. He thought it was a good idea to bring some of their meds to school and hand them out like candy. These were strong meds, and not all of them were pain pills. At least 5 kids overdosed, 2 of them had seizures. No one died thankfully. First one quite funny lol. Second lucky no one died. When the religion teacher cheated on her husband with the math teacher. It was a couple years after I graduated. But the principal was caught giving money to gang kids and was demoted. And then a girl got caught having sex with a 40-year-old man in the school bathroom. I was in 8th grade at the time, but the high school I would be attending the next year had a massive hazing scandal that made international news overnight. A group of junior girls trying to join the Powder Puffs went to play football against the seniors. Instead of playing, they got the sh kicked out of them, were forced to sit in a huddle on the ground while paint and animal intestines were thrown at them. And one girl even had a bucket put over her head as it was hit with baseball bats. I heard later on she suffered permanent hearing loss. Someone recorded it. This was before smartphones, so someone had a literal camcorder and release it to the media. The senior girls that were identified were suspended, many of them losing college admissions. And some parents were arrested when it was found out they supplied alcohol. When I started high school we had to endure multiple school assemblies every year about how hazing is bad, and participate in week-long seminars about being more caring and considerate of our fellow students. Eater. Holy social media response. Batman. Thank you for the awards, internet friends. For those of you that called Glenbrook North, you were very correct. Here's some more info about what happened for those of you that are curious. The school had news vans parked outside of it for weeks. Baptist High School. Teacher got arrested for something like 400 plus counts of RE against the youth pastor's daughter who was a freshman sophomore during these incidents. They occurred in the classroom and on a bus he drove for Sunday school kids. He had a potential history of this stuff, but the school overlooked it. Creepy AF. One girl literally kicked on a guy's balls so hard that he had to be hospitalized. The girl was 15, the boy was 11, and there were no actions because of lack of evidence. Not that scandalous. A friend's stuff kept going missing, like books and pens. It didn't stop even after multiple complaints from him and the teachers didn't really care. His mom screamed at the teachers and the principal did her own investigation and concluded that it was a boy who stole from that guy. The principal decided to call the male student's parents to talk to them. After a year, it turns out that the thief was a girl and she yeeted the guy's stuff out the window because the guy was bullying her. Lol, fair enough. Headmaster was sent to prison for being a pedophile. One of our teachers, beloved by his students, had a ton of CP on his computer. Many of my friends said he made them feel safe and was really cool, but a bit touchy.